But I want to welcome to the stage a keynote I'm really excited to have. When we start to think about who's going to keynote BrightonSEO, we look for a number of things. We look for people who are going to be really, really interesting. Insights that perhaps sometimes wouldn't necessarily always get programmed at an SEO conference. And someone who fitted those kind of really interesting, really relevant, but not obvious, is our lovely next speaker. If we could have a huge round of applause for Natalie, everybody.
Hi everyone, all of you who are left. I saw that there was quite a large turnout last night for the partying. How many of you are actually still hungover this evening? How many of you still an incy bit still drunk? Murmuring, we're not gonna, okay, a few of you. All right, well, I'm gonna whistle stop through 30 minutes of how to design persuasive content using web psychology. So web psychology basically is a scientific or empirical study of how online environments like websites, apps, marketing, etc., how all of these environments influence our attitudes and our behaviors. And it draws from a whole bunch of disparate fields. So things like human-computer interaction, you've got things like neuroaesthetics, which is how we respond to visual stimuli at a brain activity level. You've got things like cross-cultural psychology. The list kind of goes on and on and on. And the reason it's useful is because it enables us, whatever our engagement online is, to design some kind of set of toolkit using these psychological insights to help us design more persuasive websites, content, experiences, apps, products, etc. And it's these kinds of approaches that I help these sorts of companies to use and implement with their customers. So what's the purpose, like a tortoise, purpose of good content? Does anyone want to shout something out? What does good content do? You're very quiet. It engages people. And what's usually the point of engaging someone? You've got their attention, then what? Yeah, you want to think you want to sell to them, or you want to do something that's the kind of action. So yeah, so you've got to be able to grab and hold the attention of the right people. It's not just a quantitative thing. You have to get the right people in. You then have to provoke the desired emotional response. And then you have to convert this into a mutually beneficial action. Now, this kind of grab, provoke, and convert is the same thing that I end up having all too often on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock when I'm drunk or a little bit hungover, like you guys, and the Jehovah's Witnesses come to the door and they try and do this. So they're not particularly effective. Hopefully, you will be more effective by the end of the talk. So how do you actually do this three-step process? Well, the first thing that you have to know about is the psychology of decision-making. So most of us like to think that we're quite rational. And actually, when you dig into how we make decisions, there's a whole variety of studies that show us that decision-making is inherently emotional. So neuropsychological studies show us that when people have got lesions or brain damage in areas of the brain responsible for processing emotions, they actually find it really difficult to make everyday decisions. So you could say to them, do you want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? And they will be able to list exactly why you should go for one or the other. But when it comes to giving them the actual choice, they can't physically make the action. So emotions enable us to take action. And what's interesting is that if you're giving someone two ways of deciding, so emotion versus rationality or a thinking systematic approach, typically it's the emotional side that will win out. Now, research has also shown that if you create a positive emotional state, people's purchase intentions go up. So if you want to create a positive emotional state so that their purchase intentions go up, they have to be able to trust you. And it's actually been found that this is the most important factor whenever it comes to successful relationships, whether that's between you and your mates, you and your parents, you and your lover or lovers, and you and your brands that you engage in, or in your case, the brands with their customers. And lack of trust is the biggest issue in e-commerce. So when people buy from you, they have to be able to figure out why they should trust you. So one way to do this is to establish yourself in your values and to then emanate these business-wide. And there are various different companies that do this sort of thing. And in the end of 2014, Nielsen did a massive study, and they found that 81% of millennials, which is at this point, like, I guess, between 18 to 34-year-olds, said that they actually expect the companies that they buy from to make a public commitment to good corporate citizenship, or being able to help people in the environment and socially. Otherwise, they wouldn't trust them to buy from them. This is a massive statement. And it's the kind of statement that we're hearing again and again from different kinds of consumers, to the extent that this sort of movement, the B Corp movement, is now gaining so much traction that people and companies are flocking to get the certification. It's kind of like what the fair trade mark is to certain goods, or the organic mark is to certain foods. So in order to trust you, people need to feel safe, they need to feel understood, and they also need to feel enabled and supported. And one of the best ways to do this is to show homophily. And homophily basically is the love of the same. So the tendency that we have to associate with people who are similar to ourselves. So if you came out on the first night and you came out by yourself, I've noticed I do this also, you will probably have gone towards people that look a little bit like you, or who sound a little bit like you, or who maybe are a bit more extroverted like you, because we feel more comfortable in the presence of other people who are similar. What's also interesting is that a similar or homophilous source will also be seen as more credible, more trustworthy and reliable, and we're much more likely to believe what they say. Their communication is much more effective. So if you want to leverage this principle, increase trust, increase similarity, you have to understand the demographics and the psychographics, that's things like personality, motivations, of your audience, and then be able to mirror it back in the way that they feel connected.
Damn bitches be on my nerves right now. I cannot even watch a simple YouTube video without these advertisements popping up.
YouTube ad. I hate these things. This guy's just trying to watch a graphic animal attack video, but no, I have to sit through an ad. Stupid, incredible deal. This guy's just trying to watch a screaming goat video, all black highlights, watch a music video, Jimmy Fallon clip, an Anchorman 2 trailer, North Korean babies play the guitar, but no, they have to sit through an ad.
Right, so when we talk about personalizing content, you can think, oh shit, that's going to cost me a huge amount of money. I've got to do all of this research, and we're going to come into that bit in a sec. But actually, the simplest thing to do is figure out who you're trying to reach. In this case, it was young males under 25 years old. Look at what they're searching for. You can find that in all sorts of analytics platforms. And then figure out how to create relevant content specific to the content that they're searching for. So it doesn't have to be that complicated. And they actually did 64 of these ads, and they had huge traction with this group that otherwise would have hated it. Great example of personalized, persuasive content. So this leads on to the next point to make, which is that basically the kinds of stories that we like to relate to, that we like to engage in, that we like to tell, are the ones that reflect our own experiences of the world. And so when you try to do this online, there are various different ways to go about it. A great example that I really like is this one. It's by a cancer charity. And you go online and you can see, well, cancer is something that touches everybody's lives. So they're going to have a very diverse audience. So you can see straight away at the top, you've got a man and a woman and a child. They've tried to do a little bit with gender diversity and age and ethnicity with a limited amount of visual real estate that they have. But when you start digging in deeper, they're enabling different people to find different stories that will relate personally to them. So if you came on the site and you saw, okay, well, that's girls on a night out, and you'd been on a night out, and that was the same sort of age bracket, you'd be much more likely to engage on that particular page or that particular story. And so it enables you to choose the story that you want and to dive deeper and then interact specifically with that piece of content, because it's going to be more persuasive because it's similar to your experience. Okay, so when you're getting people involved and engaged, there are ways to make your language much more persuasive. And research has found from the scientific world, although it should be obvious if you're in marketing, that persuasive messages, so marketing, ads, content, can actually be adapted to fit people's personality traits, which is fascinating. And this is a really great way of making the message more effective for particular groups. So how many of you have tried the Myers-Briggs test? Any of you? Yeah, lots of you. Any other kind of psychological tests? Some of you. Okay. So I hate to break it to you, Myers-Briggs, I know I get a lot of heat when I say this, I'll probably get some angry tweets afterwards. It's really not a very reliable test. You take it 1 week, and literally, if you take it 2 weeks later or however long after, you're 50% likely to get completely the opposite results. And that's what you call bad internal reliability. Personality traits are incredibly difficult to measure, but there is one standard that's been used as kind of the golden model within psychological research, because it started off with 4,500 traits, which they reduced to 35, and then over the years reduced to 5, and now there are sub-traits. But this is the model that you should be looking at if you are serious about looking at personality. So I thought we'd make this fun, because I don't want this to be really academic and boring. We're going to make this into a quiz, and you're going to get to learn a little bit about yourself, which should be quite fun. So I want you to put your hand up if you think this relates to you. So put your hand up if you have a high degree of intellectual curiosity, creativity, and you tend to prefer novelty and variety in your life. If that sounds like you, it's quite a lot of you. Excellent. Okay, if you had your hand up for that one, chances are you're high in the trait of openness. And this is one of my favorite ones. So openness to new experiences, you're going to be the early adopters. You're the one who kind of goes, oh my God, there's this new weird thing that's come into town. We've got to go and see it. And your mates are going, what are you doing? You're crazy. This is you guys. Okay, the second trait. Put your hand up if you feel that this reflects you, that you're organized, you're dependable, you're pretty self-disciplined, if you feel like you might be a little bit dutiful, if you prefer to plan ahead and systematically aim for achievement. If that's you, kind of goal-oriented, task-oriented. Some of you, not as many of you. Right, well, I hate to break it to those of you without your hands up. You're all fucked, basically. Research shows that this trait of conscientiousness is the single most accurate predictor of overall life success. So if you didn't have your hand up, you might want to cover your ears, because you might get quite upset at the next bit. If you had your hand up and you score highly, you're much more likely to have better relationships in terms of long-term marital relationships. You're much more likely to eat healthily. You're much more likely to get better career satisfaction. This particular trait has been relabeled in recent years as grit. I don't know if you've heard people talking about grit. And so if you don't have a high ranking in conscientiousness, it's good to start strategizing now to help bolster up. Okay, third trait. Put your hand up if this relates to you. If you are energetic, positive, assertive, and sociable, I think that's most of you, judging from last night, do you tend to seek stimulation in the company of others? That's you? Okay, most of you. I'm not that surprised. Okay, if you had your hand up for that one, chances are you score highly in the trait of extroversion. So you're the kind of person who will go out to the parties and talk to everybody, and that's quite exciting, versus people who score low in this trait, who are more introverted, who probably will find that actually quite uncomfortable. Okay, fourth trait. Do you have the tendency to be compassionate and cooperative as opposed to antagonistic and suspicious and challenging towards others? Put your hands up if you're more the cooperative side of things. That's most of us. And if you're kind of more the challenger, I always get a few, yeah, challenger. Okay, great. By the way, neither of these ends of a spectrum are good or bad, and we sit along all sorts of points of these spectrums, so don't worry too much. Okay, so if you did have your hand up for the cooperative bit, you probably score higher in agreeableness. So you're more likely to be nice to people that you don't like, and you're also more likely to follow social norms. The people at the other end of the scale are likely to tell you exactly what they think, even if it results in a slap around the face. Okay, the last one I don't want you to put your hand up for, because this is more of a difficult one for everybody. But this relates to whether you have the tendency in general in your life to experience unpleasant emotions easily, such as anxiety and anger and depression and vulnerability. Now, all of us will experience moments of all of these traits. This is actually talking about your general baseline. And it relates to the fifth and final trait, which originally was called neuroticism. It's more recently been kind of changed into emotional stability, because no one wants to have a neurotic score, because it's quite upsetting. But it's worth knowing about. Okay, so now that you've done that little quiz and you have some sense of where you might score within those 5 different traits, I thought I'd get you to answer the next couple of questions on these specific adverts. So who do you think, in terms of traits, this particular advert appeals to? And I'll read some of it out. It says, degree men, obviously it's men, protect men who take risks, embrace the thrill of adventure with degree adrenaline series. So you've got risk, embrace the thrill, adventure, adrenaline. Does anyone want to shout it out? What they think? The first one? The second one? Extrovert, yes, extrovert. Whoever said that, yes, absolutely. And research has found that people who score highly in extroversion, like that lot, or even Red Bull, Red Bull's a brilliant example of this, they react much better to ads within Google ads that include these personality trigger words. So you can actually scientifically design your ads and your content to grab the attention of people who are high in this trait. So these words, strong, outgoing, active, excitement, attention, that's going to grab your extroverts really much more persuasively. What about this brand? We all know and love this brand, most of us do at least. Who do you think they're sort of targeting? Tossers. Well done. All right, and wait, who said that? And do you own an Apple product? That's such a lie. He's like, no, it's underneath my chair. You're just a slightly less of a tosser than the rest of us. That's fine. Anyway, tossing's fun. Nothing wrong with tossing. Okay, so just saying, we're sex positive here. So think different, Apple. They always use these sorts of words in their language. Innovation, sophistication, intelligence, blah, 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 blah. They are high in openness. And actually, open people are more likely to take greater risks with their sexuality. So well done, you weren't entirely wrong. So these sorts of words are likely to be very persuasive for people high in openness. So innovation, intelligence, sophistication, imagination, creativity, etc. Okay, how about this one? Different deodorant ad, proven protection against stress sweating. Who's that going to aim for? There's some giggles back there. Right, people who are feeling neurotic. Now, the thing to say here is that there are the traits of personality, and then there are also states. So it might be that you're in an excitable state, or you might be in an anxious state, and you can actually design your messages according to both. Yes. So for people who score high in neuroticism, these sorts of words are actually much more persuasive when tested on Google ad campaigns. So things like safe or safety, reducing anxiety, the uncertainty and security and protection. So it's all stuff about minimizing risk, basically. Bless you. So specific words engage specific traits, and if you want to be able to design your content in a personalized way, you have to understand this particular psychography, the motivations and the attitudes and the personality traits of your audience to be able to test if there are specific skews in a particular direction for personality, and then be able to change your content accordingly. Does that make sense? Yes, okay. So if you're thinking about campaigns in general, I've given you some trigger words. I thought it would be probably quite useful for you to know general kinds of narratives or themes that you can use in the content that you create. So if you're dealing with people who are high in openness, they're much more likely to find creativity and intellectual stimulation more rewarding. If you're looking with people who are conscientious, efficiency and goal pursuit might be better, which is, I would imagine, the kind of group that TransferWise and Zero.com kind of aim for initially. If you're dealing with extroverts, you might want to design content that's going to be exciting and it's going to be easy for them to get social rewards for. So things that they can comment on, that they can retweet, whatever it might be. People who are highly agreeable, things that connect them with their family and community. And finally, neuroticism, something that's going to help them feel more safe and secure. If you are interested in doing this stuff right, people, these are your resources. I will make the slides available to you afterwards, but if you want to get a screen grab, you can. I'll quickly talk you through what they are. So the Big Five, that's the Big Five academic personality test I told you about. You can go online and get your scores for free. It's completely academic. There are a whole bunch of Cambridge University-based personality tests, which are brilliant, that you can try out there. That's number 2. The third is mining your personality and psychographic profile from your Facebook likes. It's pretty freaky stuff. You can check that out at your peril. The fourth one is about your digital footprint in general. And the fifth is if you're interested in analyzing texts that people have sent you, like, for instance, emails, or I don't know if you can do that with Tinder profiles. I think it has to be a bit longer than that. You can figure out the personality traits of someone using linguistic analysis. Quite useful. Okay, so there are also other psychological ways to increase engagement, including optimizing your headlines. So what do you notice about these following headlines? So we've got the first one. It says, progressives can't trust Hillary. What's behind her bizarre alliance with the Christian right? Then we've got 24 of the most outrageous Donald Trump quotes. I don't know how they're able to choose. He's just a total nutcase. And then you also have secret to learning is the reverse of conventional wisdom. And finally, surprising secrets of super agers. What's going on there? What's some of the things that you notice? You're a smart audience. Anyone want to hazard a guess? Is there a word? Intrigue? Yes, there is absolutely intrigue. They're trying to provoke some kind of psychological reaction from you. And they all use trigger words in order to do this. And trigger words are nothing new. They've been happening since people were like the town ringers going, oy yay, crazy knife woman stabbed by her own axe at the top of the hill or something weird. I just made that up. This is why I don't write content, apart from books, but that's different. So trigger words, these sorts of things will trigger people into some kind of psychological reaction. So weird, surprising, secret, mystery, effortless, painstaking, strange. I'm not going to read them all out, you can read. Anyway, all of these different words will elicit some kind of psychological reaction that hooks people in to read your content. My favorite one is it's not what you think, because it presumes that people somewhere along the lines are psychic and they know what you think. And you know that they can't know what you think, but you just have to make sure that what you're thinking is not what they thought that you're thinking. And so you end up, it's ridiculous. So whether you're an overthinker or an underthinker, it's always going to work. And what's interesting is that with these trigger words, if you then look at the 3 words phrases that are most shared on Facebook that are found in BuzzFeed articles, the number of times that they see the word you repeated. So it's all about you. It's all got to be about the kind of character that you are, or before you die, or you probably didn't, or in your life. It's all about the person. It's about what's in it for me. So I want to give you a quick formula on how you could put this together. Now I'm going to put a caveat here with everything. Formulas are great. It's kind of a clickbaity formula. And the reason I'm giving it to you is so that you can start applying some of these principles in concrete ways and then playing with them. There are so many other ways to do this, but this one's quite fun. So you need a number and a trigger word, then an adjective, a keyword, a promise, and that creates some kind of a killer headline. So I thought we would go through an example. Right, subject, Brighton SEO. You could write an article entitled, Why You Should Go to Brighton SEO, or How to Party at Brighton SEO. Or you could apply the formula and go, 13 outrageous ways Kelvin gets you blind drunk at Brighton SEO. So you have the number 13. Trigger word, outrageous. It could be bizarre. It could be, I don't know, myopic ways if he forgot his glasses or something. You've got the adjective, blind. So it's not just drunk, it's blind drunk. And the keyword, Brighton SEO. And then the promise, get blind drunk at SEO, which I'm sure is something that everyone likes to think is a possibility. So you can apply this formula and make something which is otherwise a little bit dry into something eminently more clickable. But isn't this just clickbait? Well, questionably, if you're not offering value or you're promising more than you can deliver, then yes, absolutely, it is clickbait, and you shouldn't be doing it because it's going to hurt your brand image. And the difference between clickbait and persuasive messages is that clickbaits hook you in, or and get your clicks, and then they fail to deliver on any kind of promise, whereas persuasive messages hook you in, and then they give you something worth connecting for. So a great example of this, I used to read Upworthy quite a lot, and then one day I had like 10 minutes in my afternoon, and I thought, right, I'm going to give myself a bit of a dopamine hit, go onto the site, click on that video, and it says, the Dalai Lama has some very uplifting words and wise words to say about fasting. And I thought, what can you say that's wise about fasting? I'm quite puerile. So I thought, I'll watch it, but it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time. So I start watching, and he's just, talking about wisdom and his normal tropes. And then at the end, he basically says, well, yes, we all fart in planes. I'm like, I didn't learn anything new. That wasn't wise. It wasn't funny. It wasn't something unexpected. And it wasn't wise words about fasting. It was just like, here's some wisdom. And we fart in planes. And like, I know both of those things. So I was really disappointed. Never went back to the site. Literally, it's probably quite embarrassing to admit that. But anyway, the point is it didn't deliver, and so I didn't come back. So if you're going to use these kinds of approaches, you have to ask yourself, what are the tangible benefits that you're delivering your customers from this content? So I'm going to do some key takeaways. I know you're desperate for your drinks, probably. The key takeaways are, if you want to create persuasive and emotionally engaging content, number one, you have to establish trust through things like shared value and homophily, show people how you're similar to them, mirror them. The second is that you have to research and then adapt your content to your customers' personalities, their motivations, their aspirations. And then finally, use trigger words and deliver value when you're creating content that's going to hook them in and get them to take action. Thank you very, very much for your time. I don't know if we've got time for questions, but you've been lovely, and I hope you enjoyed the party.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Really, really enjoyed that. Amazing. So, yeah, I think we'll let everyone go for a drink, if that's all right. I'm sure they can grab you afterwards.